Jake, man, good to see you back on the podcast. Man, it's been a minute since we've done these things, huh?
Yeah, no, we definitely gave this a go a couple times to see if we can get it going. And hey, maybe this is the time that it works for sure. Who knows? But I think it's cool to have these kind of conversations. Kind of these little filmmaker conversations. Because we're dealing with different challenges on set, and we do,
Right.
Our focus is client work, right? I've done a lot of client work. You've done a lot of client work. We're doing a bunch of client work now. And this is one of those things where, probably 90% of the time, your client work is going to be very cut and, simple, standard. It's going to be A camera, B camera, cine camera, cine lens, all your camera support, your lights, everything like that. But we're in a unique situation, and these things come up from time to time when you have a client that you need to, serve, tell the story and serve them in a different way than your typical just A camera, B camera, cine setup. And we're in a unique spot right now because there's a client that we're taking care of right now, and it's a huge construction project, right? And you came to me, and you remember the kind of what you said to me when you were trying to figure out how to do this. What was your first reaction when the client came to you with this request, and what were they using? Like paint the picture, and then we'll go into like what solution we're considering.
Sure. Well, I think you and I both are always on the same page with it starts, if it's commercial or if it's narrative, it's telling a story, right? Most of the clients that, we work with, it's, at the end of the day, they want to tell a story. And I think with this one, it's just a big scope and scale, but also they want to talk a little bit about, who they are, what they offer. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's just like they want to show the scope and scale of the project, but also it's like we dive into how it goes on the operational side as well. But this particular project, I think, we'll probably do some updates with it as we go along. But we're in the pre-production phase, and something I kind of wanted to talk to you about is on every project, right? We storyboard ideas and concepts, and this one here is we want to. I came to you when we were talking. I said, the client wants to do a big time lapse, right, over the whole facility. It's a big facility, but we also want to have good quality of a time lapse, and then there's weather elements. So I said, Jacob, how are we going to do this? There's a construction type of time lapse, but we wanted to have more of a cinematic look, a cinematic feel, and then you proposed the Insta360. So tell me, in your opinion, like, I've worked with the GoPro's 360. Like, what's the difference? Why do you prefer the Insta360? What can that do to help us get what we want to do?
Right. So obviously a unique challenge, right? You have a client that's putting together, they're essentially erecting a giant steel building, and it's going to span over multiple acres. And, this is a unique challenge for construction sites, regardless of video production. They're trying to get a record of the construction process. They use it for internal marketing and a little external marketing on sales pitches when they're trying to bid work. They could say, hey, look, this is we did this building, from leveling the ground all the way up to a finished product. And so we're dealing with a massively commercial construction site right here. And there are companies that offer solutions for time lapse for these projects. These are not cinema focused companies. These are not high-end production focused companies. This is basically the equivalent for a trail camera for a hunter, right? Who cares about the quality? I want to see Bigfoot on this thing or a bunch of deer.
Right.
So this is just literally checking a box. This is not for technically savvy people. They're using a camera, and I can't think of the manufacturer name, but we'll put it on the screen so you can just kind of see what they're currently using. And it's an action cam, so to speak. It's really a time-lapse camera only, and it is inside of a housing. And that housing, really, it's just a weatherproof housing, and it's got, kind of a glass dome on the front as a lens, but it's not a lens. It's just, some acrylic. And then the camera actually butts up against it. And if you position it just right, you can get, we found out today when the client was showing us some footage, it'll fisheye if it's not set just right. So, I mean, it
Right.
really is so
Yeah.
utilitarian. And the challenge that we looked at when we saw these in the specs on these cameras are not, there's zero production value in mind. This is, like I said, strictly utilitarian. And so while we can use that footage and it's an MP4 format, I mean, it's not a foreign format to work with. It's not, it doesn't have the right compression. Way too much compression, bit depth, bit rate, color space, all of these things. I mean, there's no log options. And obviously, who wants log in 8-bit anyway? I'd almost rather the camera process it, because we're going to get so much banding and artifacting. It's not even worth
Sure.
it. So,
Sure.
but what's good though is, they are better than nothing. And they started using these. And when you came to me, this project is already underway. They kind of, brought us in right after it just got started. So we're kind of jumping in there, when the
Yeah.
project's like, what did they say, 16 to 18% done. So, we still have a lot we can capture. But my initial thought was, like you were just mentioning earlier, Insta360, as opposed to GoPro. Now,
Right.
I've used GoPro in the past, and it's been a reliable product in the past. Going forward, I haven't had good luck with GoPros. Not, some people may use them and love them. I found that the DJI brand and the Insta360 brand is just, to me, offering more features and more customization and just
Yeah.
more latitude. There's a bigger envelope of features that are better for filmmakers like us,
Right.
and on our kind of mission. So
So the 360, we're able to shoot 4K on it. It actually shoots
right,
6K.
6K, yes, yeah,
Yeah, and then
so
it's a 360,
right,
which is great. I guess some pros and cons that I think we were talking about the 360, the Insta360 is weather, right? Weather, how we're going to house it, how we're going to keep it
yeah.
away from the elements, because it's going to be out overnight. So, and I'm sure a lot of filmmakers understand that as well. So how do you think we could solve that problem?
Yeah, so that was obviously weatherproofing this camera. So the camera inherently is waterproof. It's I think up to 35 feet. So, it is designed self-contained to be used in a variety of conditions. The problem we're facing is we're doing a time lapse over such a long period of time. We need to be on shore power. We need to have this thing externally
Right.
powered. And so we have to figure out, we have so many challenges, right? We initially thought that we could place these cameras and have access to an AC power source, like a wall outlet, right? Well, this facility is so big, they have their own substation. So they're getting transmitted power in there, and they're have a substation converting it down
Right.
to another high voltage. And so there's nothing, there's things are still being worked
Sure.
on. I mean,
Yeah.
it's literally like a little city, but it has no infrastructure. Everything's gas powered right now. They're using cranes and stuff. So we have no shore power. Long story short, we have no AC power available to us. Not really, so we need an external battery solution, and the internal battery is just not good enough. The construction cameras they're using right now, these utilitarian cameras, are like running on double A's, and they last a year. And that's great, but
Wow.
these cameras that we want to use, and like the 360, there's a trade-off, right? So if we use these, it's going to require a lot more. We're going to have to tend to them a lot more. We're going to have to check on them, check the file size, check battery life,
Right.
because we're trying to go for a desired result. The end product deserves a better result than it is required of us to work during production, if that makes sense, right? So like the outcome is going to far exceed
Yeah.
the work requirement, the production requirement. So it's worth it to do this. And so my initial thought was, okay, how do we keep this camera, the integrity of the waterproofing of this camera, as intact as possible, knowing that we're going to have to expose a port, a USB-C port, to keep it powered. And
Yeah.
so my mind immediately went to, like, how would I do this in a pinch? And then work up from there. So the first thing I thought was, okay, we got to make this work in a day or in half a day, and it has to start today. How do we make that work? And I go to the most bare bones, simple way of doing it, and it's just like, you know, plug in a USB-C cable. Open the port, plug in the USB-C cable, just smash a bunch of hot glue in there. Make a temporary but durable seal. It won't be perfect, but it'll stop the weather, and we can get rolling right away. And then it's like, okay, where does this plug into? Well, it'll be a USB Type A probably. It needs to plug into a block, and that would go into AC. That was my initial thought, and then we found out there was no AC power. But I was going to weatherproof these links in the chain along the way just to get us up and running. And then I thought, well, maybe we need a housing. So, I was starting to think, how can we make a somewhat of a housing on top to keep direct sunlight off the camera, to prevent overheating or just overall UV exposure, and it might degrade. And then maybe something to block direct rain, right? Because we can kind of compromise the camera's waterproofing spec as long as it's not submerged or in direct rain. I think we can do a lot of moisture blocking with something like hot glue, which, it sounds so bad to say.
You love your hot glue.
I'm telling you, I use it all the time. I do a lot of 3D printing, and it's great. But no, the hot, I say that as like, I'm telling you, that's a quick fix, right? It heats up fast, it dries fast. But really what you'd want to do is get some type of aqua seal, some type of, moisture rated type of medium, but something that also won't leave permanent residue and damage the camera. So, thinking about housing and things like that. Well, we find out on a technical scout that we don't have access to power, and then our mounting options are somewhat limited, and they're in high traffic, high activity, just busy construction areas. There's like a power pole that we can attach to, and I looked at on site today where their other time-lapse camera is, and this pole's 60 foot. It's a 60-foot pole, and it's probably buried.
It was a good vantage point. It would showcase all the whole facility. I do have a question too. We were talking about time. Like I guess we would have one SD terabyte card would shoot. Would take a time lapse about every 5 minutes. How long would that last, in your opinion?
That's a good question. So, like, obviously, file size. You have a terabyte to work with. A frame every 5 seconds, which means if you're looking at a 2398 timeline, which is what we're going to use, so 24 frames a second. Every 5 seconds you get one frame. So how many seconds to get 1 second of footage? You need 24 frames to make 1 second. And so you run the numbers on that, and I believe it's something like I guess it would be 5 times 24, and that would give you that 1 second, right? So we're looking at we get 1 second of footage every 125 minutes. I think it works out something like that, or whatever, or something like that. When it comes to doing math, I almost want to use like a calculator online or something, because the more you do math and you stack up all of the numbers, and you divide and you add and you divide, every now and then I'll do the math the same exact way and get two different numbers. So, but just off the top of my head, right, you kind of get a feel for the ratio. But really, I feel like breaking it down to the most basic unit, which would be 360 file, right? So we know how much the average DSLR or mirrorless camera taking a high quality still image, and, you're thinking about between, at the low end, 12 megabytes all the way up to like 50, 60 megabytes per picture, maybe more, depending on your settings, but you can average. But what is this Insta360 file giving us? There's going to be a lot of metadata probably, because we're gonna be able to open this up in the editor and then reframe and adjust, since it's 360. Yeah. So there's probably some metadata. There's probably some proprietary data that comes with that file, each file. So what we need to do is really test it out. I haven't used an Insta360 in a time-lapse mode over a long period of time. So we would need to test it out. And what we would basically do is we wouldn't aim to shoot to fill up a 1 terabyte card. We would aim to shoot for a day or a quarter of a day or half a day, but a user-friendly, divisible amount of time. And let's say we did from like 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So this would give us a 3-hour window of time lapse in our desired setting. And then we can take that and say, okay, for a quarter of a workday, the card fills up 3 gigs. Okay.
Right.
So for a full day, that's 12, that's 12 gigs. Well, we know that, let's say 12 gigs, that's not very much. We could do 10 days and that's 120 gigs. Well, that's a little more than a tenth of the card. That's 12% of the card.
Yeah.
So then we know that that card is good for, you know, however many days. And that
Yeah.
way, we have a good baseline of what our data rate usage is going to be, because we want these cameras to operate with minimal intrusion. The more you access the camera, you move it, you open ports, you're taking a
Hmm.
card
Hmm.
out. These things, they might move the camera. And for a camera that's mounted like on a tripod or mounted to a pole or something, that's not 360. It's a bigger deal. You don't want there to be a jolt in your composition. 360 is going to be a little more forgiving, but we still don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So we want to go as long as we can, with
Good thing is
retaining quality.
we'll be able to test it out, and we'll
Yeah,
have we'll be able
right,
to see
exactly.
some of the footage.
So
We
and
could.
right now, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying we'll be able to test it out, and we'll be able to showcase. Kind of. We'll go back to this video about what we're talking about, and we'll be able to say,
Yeah,
"Hey, well, does
we
this
could follow
good?
up.
This good? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah."
And
Go
so
follow
right
up.
now, to me, the biggest hurdle is going to be, how are we going to power this thing? And so right
Hmm.
now we're looking at, we need a battery solution. Now, I even thought, and like I said, I immediately think of the most simple, get it done now solution that we can do. And I
Okay.
can take, a 12-volt car battery, you know, and literally connect it to a USB port and plug it in. And is that ideal? No, it's not. But a car
How about a
battery,
V mount? We could do a V mount.
so a V mount's great. So the problem with a V mount, though, what you need to look at is your milliamp hours, right? Your
Yeah.
how much stored power is this thing going to have, and how is that power discharged, and what's being used. So if we can keep these cameras in a low power state, this is another thing we need to determine. This is where, it might take
This is a
3 hours.
problem solve. This is how you have to problem solve all
Yeah,
these scenarios.
we could figure out how much data we're going to use in 3 hours, but how much
Yeah.
power are we going to use? We need to run
Yeah.
this thing for a day, and
Right.
then check our levels on our V mount.
Yeah.
We need to run it for a day, and then put some, multimeter on a car battery, whatever. But we got to have a portable solution that's very energy dense, that can go a long period of time without needing recharge or anything like that. Here's another
Right.
thing to consider. Let's say my immediate, because what if we're out there and we don't have access to a V mount? I can find access to a car battery. I could probably get that. It'll be hard, but I can do it. I could pull it
I
out of
don't
a
know if
man
they
lift,
would allow the car
right?
battery. That
But
makes me a bit
but
nervous.
but I'm really saying this to kind of make a, like, set like a case, like
Okay.
make like an example. So, like, what's the hot swappability of a car battery? Well, if you drain a car battery all the way, a lead acid battery, you have to, recharge that thing with a trickle charger. It's going to take, a lot of time, and you could damage the battery, and there's all these components. But a lithium V mount battery is designed for many, many cycles of full charge to no
Yeah.
charge. So that's where a V mount actually makes a lot of sense, right? Here's
Right.
another option: a battery power bank, like one of these Anchor power banks or something.
Yeah.
That could be a good option. And you got to think too, most battery, most consumer batteries on the market, even prosumer batteries, like, I'm going to show you an example. I'll reach. This right here, this is just a Craftsman drill battery, right?
Hmm.
It's not anything special. You would think that the battery is, shaped like this, but really
Sure.
it's most likely filled with 18650 batteries, which is readily available. You can import them from China or wherever. And they're vape batteries. Like if you ever had a vape or a rechargeable flashlight, and it's just multiple cylindrical
Yeah.
battery cells in here. Not, bigger than a double A, smaller than a C battery, but they're just the standard of, your lithium battery. And then you just, put them in, you connect them all in series, parallel, whatever, and then you put them in a housing, and you sell the housing for a lot of money. That's what V-mount
Right.
batteries are.
Right.
That's what these batteries are. That's what probably is in those Anchor power banks, but it's so many of them. Or maybe they're using like a different form factor than that
Yeah.
battery, but that's usually what you find in these. So, the more of
So
those you
maybe
have,
we can
the
test
better.
out a few different options and then kind of come back and do a follow up about what we're
Yeah.
talking about now. And
I
that's kind of
feel,
what we're going over with some of these some of these podcast videos, just like onset situations or problems we're trying to solve.
right.
Maybe you can help out a few people. They can list a few ideas in the comment
That's
section, but
great.
we're
Oh,
just
man.
trying to
Send them in.
talk and brand out to the community, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's really what filmmaking's about, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of problem solving, and so many times we'll be on autopilot because after you do so many productions, you learn to anticipate, everything your client's going to say or want.
Yeah.
You work them away from their radical edge of
Sure.
the cliff ideas, and you bring them home and you deliver a great product. You do that so much, I guess it's sometimes you can get not complacent, but you get comfortable with your
Yeah.
typical production, and we're in an atypical production right now. A lot of the progress, the production of this is going to be, this very custom approach. And so, for people in those situations, this is a good muscle to work out, because
Right.
if you could solve these kind of problems and you could start thinking, and
Yeah.
break these problems down into components, data, power, accessibility, mounting,
Yeah.
manufacture, all these different little things all come together to form a solution. And so,
Yeah.
sometimes you just need a custom approach. And this is kind of our thought process and how we got to this point. And, I could sit and talk about it for a long time, but really the gist of it is you break these problems down and you just work through different, multiple scenarios per category. For
Yeah.
example, power. Car battery, it'll work, but it's not smart. V mount, it's cool, but to put a V mount battery up there, those are expensive. And then if we have a
Yeah.
production where we need them on a cine camera, well, now a V mount's tied up. But what we don't use on our cameras is a power bank. So maybe we get a
Right.
power bank. But there's so many things to consider. And really, what it comes down to is budget, your time frame, and
Mhm.
how many resources can you have, and how much time do you have to experiment.
Right.
And that's those are the things that we have to consider.
And every job, I'm sure you can identify, and a lot of the other filmmaker folks out there can say, is like you learn something new on every job. There's
Absolutely.
always, it's not if there's something you got to solve, it's always what you have to solve on every project.
Yeah.
Yes, and a lot of times you don't have a lot of time. You got to improvise on set and fast as you can and solve these. But it always helps, like when if we're anticipating these scenarios and we try to problem solve before we get on set. So
Absolutely.
to make it, but I think it's cool, man. I'm excited to get this project going. I guess we'll just update this content as we go, and I'm curious to know what everybody else likes to use. If it's Insta360, GoPro, the new GoPros, and any other manufacturer out there, we'd love to. Like I said, it's just we want to build a community, and we want to share our documentation on our projects, films, commercials, documentaries, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great thing about the filmmaking community. Ideas, everybody else's experience, you could tap into that, and get some
Yeah.
great ideas. That's what really I feel like helps us grow as a filmmaking, group is everybody's experience comes together, and in a lot of
Absolutely.
ways, that's what influences us artistically. So it's
Yeah.
cool. But I hope that this brainstorming session sheds some light on your next project. For you watching, and maybe you look at your next typical production in an atypical way. And even if you don't have to solve any types of problems like we're facing right now, think of potential problems you might have to solve, even if you don't have to, and start theory crafting your solution.
Yep.
Start theorizing
Yep.
how you would do it. And really, it's like going to the gym. You work that muscle, and
Absolutely.
if you've ever played with Legos as a kid, it's a great time to grab your equipment and piece things
Yeah.
together and figure out what works and what doesn't. And the more trial and error you have on your workbench at the house
Yeah.
when there's no pressure, the better you perform under pressure.
Right. Absolutely. Well said. And I'm excited to keep this keep the podcast going of just updating our projects and our ups and downs and our wins and sometimes our fails.
Yeah,
and
a lot of that.
you know, yeah.
Pretty evenly
But hey,
matched.
man, it's just what comes with the nature of the beast, man.
That is just an insight into our current problem we're trying to solve. You know, we're working through it, and we want to show you guys our thought process, right? So if you have any comments, if you have any ideas, let us know, because we would love to have some more input. It's a long project, so, you know, sooner the better, but, you know, we can implement things as we go. If you are interested in this kind of content, if you want to see our behind the scenes process, our thought processes in pre-production, everything that we can possibly show you, you know, within reason, within our NDA constraints, like, subscribe, follow us, whatever. We'd love to have your support, and we appreciate you big time. Thanks.